A famous general of ancient Greece, Themistocles, once said long ago that whoever controls the seas will rule the world and be able to dominate it. Even after 2,500 years, the words of this Greek general are proving to be true word for word. Today, if the United States is the world's superpower, a major reason for that is its powerful navy. To maintain its presence and control over the world's oceans, the U.S. has military bases spread all over the globe. You can gauge the importance of controlling international waters from the fact that the U.S. spends more on its navy than on its army or air force. In 2024, the annual budget of the U.S. Navy was $202.5 billion, while the budget for its army was $185.5 billion, which is 8.39% less in comparison. We will show you the story of maritime trade. We will tell you the brief history of maritime trade. Why is sea trade preferred over land trade? What routes are used for maritime trade around the world? And which choke points exist in the oceans where the risk of war constantly looms? The history of travel and trade through sea routes is at least 5,000 years old. Historians differ on which was the first civilization to use the sea as a means to initiate trade. However, all historians agree that in the past 1,500 years, many civilizations and nations gained wealth and power because of maritime trade. Such nations spread their religion, culture, language, knowledge, and technology across the world through maritime trade and increased their influence globally. A major example of this is the Indian Ocean trade route. From the 7th century to the 15th century, this trade route was the world's largest maritime trade route. It connected the African Swahili coast, the Arabian Peninsula, the Indian subcontinent, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Malaysia, and China. The trade through this route was so extensive that it was considered richer and more voluminous in trade than the famous Silk Road. Goods such as wood, silk, cotton, gold, rice, coffee, porcelain vessels, and spices were traded via this sea route. It was also through this maritime trade route that Islam spread to many countries surrounding the Indian Ocean. These countries include Tanzania, Kenya, Mozambique, Somalia, Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Malaysia, and Indonesia. In the 15th and 16th centuries, European explorers from Spain and Portugal set out to discover new maritime trade routes. Christopher Columbus crossed the Atlantic Ocean and discovered the American continent. After this discovery, Spain and Portugal colonized North and South America. Europeans also brought with them deadly diseases like smallpox, measles, and cholera. These diseases were new to the native populations of North and South America, who had no immunity against them. As a result, a large portion of the native population succumbed to these diseases. The surviving native populations were largely massacred by the Europeans. After clearing North and South America of their native populations, Europeans began settling their own people there. Today, the indigenous population makes up only 7% of the total population in South and Central America. Following the colonization of North and South America, Spain and Portugal fully exploited the natural resources of these continents. The wealth obtained from there made both countries global superpowers. Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama discovered the first maritime route from Europe to India, traveling along the coast of Africa. This new route opened lucrative trade opportunities for Portugal with India and Africa. The spice trade from India and the gold trade from Africa made Portugal a major power in the world. Portugal also took control of the Indian Ocean trade. Observing the successes of Portugal and Spain, other European nations also entered the race to colonize the world. These colonial powers included Britain, the Dutch, Italians, Belgians, French, and Germans. From the 16th to the 20th century, these nations took control of regions across the Americas, Africa, India, Malaysia, Indonesia, and China. The British East India Company came to India for trade via the route discovered by the Portuguese. Once they saw an opportunity, the East India Company took over the entire Indian subcontinent. By exploiting the resources of India and other colonies and trading with them, Britain gained more wealth and power, becoming the world's superpower. Britain's global dominance lasted from the 18th to the 20th century. By the end of the 18th century, the entire world had become connected through sea routes. European colonial powers then began efforts to further simplify and shorten these maritime trade routes. The biggest such effort was the construction of the Suez Canal in the mid-19th century. In 1854, French engineers began digging a canal in Egypt. The goal of this 193-kilometer-long canal was to connect the Mediterranean Sea with the Red Sea and create a new maritime route. With the construction of the Suez Canal on Egyptian land, trade between Asia and Europe became relatively easier. Before this, to reach London from the Indian Ocean, ships had to take the sea route along the coast of Africa, which was about 20,000 kilometers long and took around 30 days. In comparison, the Suez Canal route was 7,000 kilometers shorter and saved 10 days in travel time, along with significant fuel savings. Even today, the Suez Canal route is a very busy one, through which 8% of global maritime trade passes. Egypt collects fees from the ships passing through this canal, generating $5.5 billion annually in foreign exchange. After the construction of the Suez Canal in 1869, the next major revolution in global maritime trade came in 1914 with the construction of the Panama Canal. This 82-kilometer-long canal was built to connect the Pacific Ocean with the Atlantic Ocean. For example, if a ship had to travel from the U.S. East Coast to the West Coast, it had to circle around the South American continent. But with the Panama Canal, the route became 15,000 kilometers shorter, saving 20 days in travel time and again resulting in significant fuel savings. Even today, the Panama Canal route is very busy, with 5% of global maritime trade passing through it. The Central American country of Panama collects tolls from ships using the canal, generating $1.7 billion annually in foreign exchange. As time passed, not only did sea routes become shorter, but shipbuilding technology also advanced significantly. In the early 20th century, a ship could carry 3,000 tons of cargo. Today, that capacity has increased 100-fold. A modern cargo ship can carry up to 300,000 tons. Keep in mind that 1 ton equals 1,000 kilograms. With the increased cargo carrying capacity of ships, the cost of transportation has significantly decreased. Sea trade requires less energy compared to land trade, hence less fuel, making it cheaper. In addition, freight management, handling large quantities of goods, is easier with maritime trade. Because sea travel is relatively safer, risks are fewer, and it causes less environmental harm. For these reasons, sea trade is still preferred over land or air trade. Even today, 85% of the world's trade happens through the seas, 9% via roads, 5% by rail, and only 1% through airplanes. Let's return to sea routes and look at a modern-day maritime trade map. On the map, highly congested sea routes are shown in red. Developed countries trade heavily among themselves. This is evident on the map, as the Atlantic Ocean trade route between Europe and the US is very busy. This shows a high volume of trade between them. Traditionally, too, the Atlantic Ocean trade route has been heavily used. But in the 21st century, the dynamics of maritime routes have changed. East Asian countries have undergone rapid industrial development. The map shows why East Asian countries are now considered leaders in global maritime trade. These countries include China, Japan, South Korea, Singapore, Malaysia, and Taiwan. Being at the forefront of maritime trade means these countries are also highly industrialized. They import crude oil and raw materials from the Middle East, Australia, and African countries by sea. These raw materials power their industries, and they export finished products worldwide via maritime routes. In the past 3 decades, China's industrial development has skyrocketed, making it the largest exporting country in the world. This is evident from the fact that 9 of the world's top 20 trading ports are located in China. Now we turn to choke points, or narrow maritime passages along sea trade routes. Choke points are narrow areas in the sea with very high traffic pressure. It's easy to block choke points, which can halt all the traffic on that route. If maritime traffic stops, It can severely damage the economies of developed countries. To avoid this situation, powerful nations keep their navies stationed at strategic points in the seas. Now we'll talk about three major choke points: the Strait of Malacca, the Strait of Hormuz, and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. The Strait of Malacca is located between Malaysia, Indonesia, and Singapore. At one point, this choke point narrows to just about 3 kilometers. 25% of global trade passes through the Strait of Malacca. All oil supplies from the Middle East to China pass through this route, making it a lifeline for China. To reduce its dependence on the Strait of Malacca, China is building alternative supply routes, CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, being one of them. The second important choke point is the Strait of Hormuz. Located between Iran and Oman in the northeast of the Arabian Peninsula, the Strait of Hormuz is only 55 kilometers wide. It connects the Persian Gulf with the Arabian Sea. Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, the UAE, Iran, and Qatar export their oil to the world through this strait. About 21% of the world's oil supply passes through it, making it extremely important. Since Iran can easily block the Strait of Hormuz, American naval ships are constantly stationed nearby. This often leads to skirmishes between the Iranian and American navies. The third important choke point is the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Located between Yemen and Djibouti in the southwest of the Arabian Peninsula, it is only 28 kilometers wide and connects the Red Sea to the Arabian Sea. Its significance lies in the fact that all Asia to Europe maritime traffic passes through Bab el-Mandeb before entering the Suez Canal and then the Mediterranean Sea. Due to this importance in international trade, a war is ongoing in Yemen between Iran-backed Houthi rebels and the Saudi-led coalition forces. The Bab el-Mandeb area is also often threatened by Somali pirates. Because of its strategic importance and the volatile situation in the region, 5 countries have military bases in tiny Djibouti. These include the US, France, Italy, China, and Japan.